So we're back with the Hoffman radio record player combo set, and I've got my camera set up inside the lid, actually. We're taking a look at the voice and music changer that someone has put in this. I'm pretty sure it's not the original, just based on the fact that the wiring from the tone arm on this thing was spliced into the remains of the shielded wiring that was already in the set going to the radio Phono switch. So, despite someone having changed it out, they didn't do it terribly. It's actually very neatly done, and the changer that they use is actually a very good one. It's voice and music. Parts quality is very good, and parts availability is also pretty darn good, including the fact that the original cartridge for this, long dead, completely toast. So voice and music offers a number of universal cartridges. Take a look at the one I've installed in here. This on their website is their CCKA. Let me double check that number. The KCCA. This is a generic half-inch screw mount base kit, and it comes with the cartridge, the stylus, which has both 78 and 33 and a third. I think it's like diamond and sapphire, one and the other. And it is a stereo cartridge, but they include additional wiring, terminals and everything, additional hardware, 2 different types of brackets, all that good stuff, so you can get it in there. And this was an easy swap out, get the wires hooked in there. I'm only doing a test connection as I haven't heat shrunk those bare connections there to finish cleaning all that up. But we're going to go ahead and put this on my demo RCA record here. And I've got the audio path hooked into the radio, so we will turn that up. Oops, that's tone. Alright. Get this going. Now it does tend to want to drop roughly where a 78 normally would, so we're going to try to avoid that. That seems to be working really rather well. Now, unfortunately, I don't have 45 adapters for this, so I can't actually check and see whether or not it'll play those at the proper speed, but I get the feeling it probably will. The audio quality sounds great. These replacement crystal cartridge kits are a fantastic deal. They're about 30 bucks or so. And I've used them in more than one installation. But this is just regarding the record player. The next step, now that this is actually running, and double check that it rejects correctly, so we are going to gently move it over to the center here. Wait for it to enter the reject groove. Absolutely riveting, isn't it? There it goes. Well, now that's interesting. I don't know if this set is actually set up with an automatic reject shut off. It's entirely possible that the tone arm isn't actually adjusted for the proper trip mechanism. I bet if we move it in just a little farther... Yeah. So I've got a little bit of adjustment work to do before it'll actually go in, so you can see that the distance difference between where it's actually dropping at the edge of the record and where it's actually looking for the reject is probably going to be about the same. So I'm going to have to fiddle with this adjustment right here in order to get it to actually drop in the right spot. So let me find a good screwdriver. I'll try to correct that issue because at the end of the day 33 1/3 are going to be what this set plays the most. Alright. And this screw is set up with a sort of elliptical deal here, so you can just keep rotating it and it'll change position all by itself. It's kind of handy. Alright, so we're a little closer than we used to be. Let's see where it rejects and it's patched. That's pretty close. We're still dropping it in the wrong spot. Yeah, that's the only thing with some of these machines sometimes, is that the doesn't always seem to want to go in the right spot. At least this particular record I've had some trouble with because the width of the reject groove is very thin compared to a lot of other records that I have. So let's test it on a slightly different one, just for comparison's sake. So I'm having the same issue with a portable set that wants to do this. I do apologize, I really don't have the stuff to get these things clean. These are just Goodwill records. We're just doing a quick mechanical test more than anything. I'm not looking for amazing audio quality here. So we'll go ahead and just drop that down into place. And let's lift the tone arm, move her over, and see where. Okay, now that one did eventually reject, but it took it a little bit of time. And we're at the end of that. So this one doesn't seem to have an automatic shut-off. It just stops going, which isn't bad. Let's try the manual reject. Yeah. Now, it is possible it was trying to turn it off and it might just not have enough force, but we'll see. But it did want to check on. Okay. Because you can briefly see the reject knob twist when it goes into the final motion there, and my thought is. Yeah, sorry, that's in the way. Christmas music. We'll just go ahead and shut the radio off. We don't need the amp. Alright, so we should redirect it and then drop the tone arm again. And yeah. I'm really not sure what it is with some of these. My only thought is that there were some 33 1/3 that were actually 7 inches in diameter. And it's entirely possible that the 33 setting on this tone arm is actually intended for 33 1/3 records. Because the arm appears to have dropped at the beginning of the track. That's probably just a coincidence. But, yeah, that's a bit on the obnoxious side. Let's try a, oops, I caught it in the middle of the reject cycle. I wanted to stop there. Alright, let's... Damn it. Keep forgetting which direction I'm rotating this thing. Alright, go ahead and shut her off. And we'll try a 78 instead. The only 78 I have is another horribly scratched up thing. Make sure to flip the stylus over to the 78 side so we don't butcher the goods 33 1/3 side. And let's see how it does with that. Now I got close, but not quite close enough. Alright, that has me just a bit on the suspicious side. Here it is. Haven't actually bothered to do this. I'm going to measure this and just see what the diameter is. Seven inches wouldn't make sense. How big is a 45? Okay, well 45 is about 7 inches. So that wouldn't work. It looks like the tone arm is really only set up for records that fit the size of about a 78. Which really, quite honestly, sucks, because if you want to put multiple 33s on this thing, it's not going to start them at the right point. The only thing I can really do is set it up so that it rejects at the right spot. Yeah, that's really about all you can do. One of the little hindrances of dealing with equipment this old. I will double check online just to make sure that I'm not missing something important on the mechanical side. But for now, I think we'll move on to the next stage, which is getting this thing set up with an auxiliary input. Okay, so I'm back with the Hoffman radio phonograph combo set. And I am working on finishing up the auxiliary input on the device. I told the owner that would probably be a good idea if you wanted to hook up any kind of audio device, like say an iPhone or an FM tuner, if you wanted to do that, or any number of other things. Heck, if you wanted to install a different phonograph, you can totally do that. And the way I dealt with that, it's a little difficult to see from this angle. Rotate this just a bit here. I have cut a piece of masonite to fit over the open back portion of this, rounded the edges, try to make it look neat. And then right here we have a pair of RCA jacks and a single pole, single throw toggle switch to select which input we want. Try to get the lighting a little better here. No, that's still pretty awful. So, right now, when this is actually plugged into the set from the jack here, you would either set the switch inside the radio or phono. And in this case, we've got set to phonograph, and if we listen to the little amplifier there, we can get the clicking me tapping on the tone arm, picking up the cartridge. Now, if we want to play something over the auxiliary port, all you do is you leave it in the phono position. It's all over but the there you go. And nobody's crying. Friends all over know I'm right. To forget about how much I care. That's all there is to it. I'll have to add some labels in order to show how simple it is and make some markings, but I need to get a decent label maker to do that. I'd rather not put Dymo labels on the back of this. It's not very professional looking. But this was a relatively simple way to add this feature. I got a good deal on 30 of these RCA jacks, and I could have added a standard, I think it's a 3.5 millimeter stereo jack. However, you can get, it's like I'm using an RCA to 3.5 mil adapter here. Those exist, and the RCA jacks mean you can plug any number of other things into it. I've actually been toying around with the idea of plugging an Amazon Alexa into this sort of thing. I mean, you need one of those adapters to do it, and you know they're not expensive or anything. And plus, the material I was using here, any of those stereos 3.5 mil jacks you're going to get are going to be have such a very thin amount of threading on them that you can only really put them through very thin materials, very thin plastic, very thin sheet metal. So a piece of, what is that, like, I don't know, 3/8 masonite, you're not going to get through that. Not enough to put a nut on the other end. So this works. Next stage, I'm going to have to get some hardware. I'm actually, if we tilt the camera up here, I'm dealing with some of the crack issues that we had where the radio actually mounts back inside, so I filled those full of tight bonds. We're clamping that, trying to get those to seal back up, and then I need to go to the hardware store and pick up some new mounting screws because the originals, the heads are just really wrecked on them, and in order to actually want to get them in and out again, need something a little better. And also I need to repaint the back of the dial scale because the original red paint is all screwed up from whatever junk got behind it. So I'll have to make another run to the hardware store, pick up a can of red paint, and probably wind up using the same stuff in my Firestone radio if I want to do the two-tone job. And once we get the radio back in this thing and plug this whole thing together, that about covers it for this. It was decided that we're not going to do anything to the cabinet. Owner wants to leave the patina the way it is. I tried taking some of the gunk off the outside on one side, although there's a bit of paint splatter that I haven't quite been able to remove, and if I do too much to that, I may wind up removing the finish underneath it. But for right now, he wants to leave it as is, which I'm fine with because I can't get original decals for it. They don't exist. This radio has practically no documentation online, so I'm going to have to take some photos and document it for that reason. And yeah, just kind of preserve it the way it is. I would still like to replace this crappy plug that the phonograph has on it. It's busted up and it's not very safe. But I do have a cardstock protector for the plugs there, so that's doable. Now the only thing that's really held me up on this set is that I still can't figure out if it's designed to play 12-inch 33s, because the space of the reject and the space where the needle will actually drop is only about the size of a 78th. And I've read some places that these machines are set up so that depending on what speed you set it to, they'll know what size record to play. But looking at the mechanics of it, I simply do not see how that is even possible because the speed mechanism has no linkage to the actual reject mechanism at all, other than changing the position that the drive wheel spins on the motor spindle. So I don't know how any of that works. It just it confuses the heck out of me. Changers like this are probably the most annoying thing to work on. If they do work decently, you can keep them working that way. But if they don't work right at all, it takes a lot of effort to try and get them running properly. But at the end of the day, most people that use this, and I figure the owner will probably want to play one record at a time, put it on there, drop the needle yourself. Then when it gets to the end, does the thing, puts the tone arm back. You know, no big deal. So if I can at least get it so that it'll reject at the right point, dropping the needle a little far in is the least of our worries, so long as it doesn't drop it off the edge. Oh, and for reference, the cartridge that I installed, the one that comes with the KCCA kit from Voice of Music, is a, let me pronounce this right, a Phono P228 cartridge, ceramic type. And yeah, fantastic little kit for doing conversions on anything that has a half-inch base, or I think they even offer another kit, the KCCB, that's designed to be glued into the head shell of the tone arm in the event that it doesn't have a standard mounting size. But that's all of that for now. I do need to install, it looks like there's a pre-drilled hole right here. I think I'm just going to grab some cable clamps and carefully get the wires for the phonograph neatly attached and not flopping around all over the place, because the bottom of this is open and I don't want them to accidentally get yanked on. So yeah, that's it for now. Alright, so we're back with the Hoffman Radio Phono combo set, and I've got it reassembled here. Dial glass has been reinstalled. The sheet metal backplate that goes with it has been cleaned and repainted with an appropriate shade of brown. And I've got it fired up here. The dial lamps don't illuminate the dial quite as well as I thought it actually would. It kind of happens to be the way some of these sets do go. They're really relying on the whiteness of the dial itself to try and reflect most of that light back. And these bulbs don't have any kind of shade or reflector around them that some other sets use to focus the light, and really that's the what really kills the operation of this dial. But you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. So let me dim the lights here. See how I do in fact have it illuminated. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. It's not as cool as it could be, and there's some bleed through, unfortunately. Well, let's see how it sounds.
That may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and agents can stop.
Radio Million Mile Club would not be possible without the generous support of the fine folks from Petro.
Zeta?
To find out how you can help.
Huh, that's interesting. I was hoping it was more classic one or something. Alright, well, it's pretty obvious that the radio portion works. We don't really care much about the radio portion predominantly because this thing now has two additional functions. So we've got the phonograph here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to set the internal switch to phonograph. Hear the wonderful crackle that makes. And then make sure the rear switch here is set correctly. There we go. Had it right the first time, didn't trust myself. Already got a record loaded here. Go ahead and switch the turntable on. It's in the middle of the reject procedure here. And unfortunately this thing seems to only want to deal with 78, so the hand set this down. And just so we make sure that I'm not actually lying about that, Yes, we do actually have a record playing in there. Now, on to the whole additional functionality thing. Go ahead and pick that up off of there. If, for example, we want something other than whatever records you got, all we have to do now is reach around to the back of the machine, flip a toggle switch that I have installed on the new backboard, and for a few seconds of fiddling with the source, so I would call that a success. So this guy is now set up with a functional 33, 45, and 78 playing changer, although I still can't get the stupid reject function to work. I don't know if it's really designed to work with 12-inch LPs. I've tried it. It just will not drop at the right spot for a 33 1/3 of modern size. So I really don't know. I've tried looking for help online, and everything that shows up basically says it should work, but either way, most people are probably just going to play these one at a time rather than risk dropping them on top of each other. People tend to be pretty careful with the records these days. And we now have a good auxiliary jack on the back, so if you don't feel like playing something over that, you can play it over whatever you feel like. With the two standard RCA jacks in the back, you can hook up another better record player if you wanted to. Or, I don't know, television, an FM tuner would be a good choice. I mean, the speaker in this thing compared to a proper set of speakers hooked up to an FM tuner would probably not be a competition. But it's whatever the owner wants. And at this point, I am happy with how things have gone. This set has been languishing in an antique shop for a while, and I actually was going to figure on buying it until he stepped in and decided he wanted it for himself. One last thing I would like to do to this, actually, is I need to make a cutout on the Masonite back panel for the cord to pass through, because right now there is no provision for that, so I'll probably start by drilling a small hole and then extending it out very carefully with my hacksaw and then cleaning that up. But all in all, I am happy with how this is working. And I think the customer will be happy as well. He was already pretty pleased with the operation of the radio. One other thing that I haven't really had a lot of luck with is for some reason these knobs are not staying on there. The original spring keepers in there, at least in this one, does not have a lot of tension remaining, and in these, someone appears to have just installed a very small piece of sheet metal. That does not do anything. They're supposed to have a small, sort of curved, bent piece of metal in there that actually provides pressure, and this one still has it in there. It's like a tiny ramp on the inside, and it won't really focus on that, I don't think. See, there's just a tiny bit of, trust me, there's a tiny bit of a curve in there that's supposed to press upwards on the flat part of the shaft, and this one is just not doing its job, and this one, well, someone just cheated and stuck that in there. So I'll have to see if I can figure out, maybe I can put a bend in this little piece of metal enough that it puts pressure on the shaft to hold it in place. As it did before. I don't know why I wouldn't do that now. But that's just some finishing touches. Realistically, this set is is ready to be enjoyed. I know I've certainly enjoyed messing with it, but it takes up a lot of space, and I've got other stuff to work on. So having it out of here eventually will be helpful. But until next time.